Hello, this is David Waumsley. This video is on Stylizer, which is a CSS editor that works on Macs and PCs, and it's the tool I've been using for now nearly 9 years. I really like it. I'm not brilliant on typing. I make too many errors, so that saves me on that. Speeds up my workflow no end, and I'm not an expert coder with CSS, and I've learned stuff by using this tool along the way. Now, if you don't want to listen to me, there's a link below, or you can come to www.skybound.ca and come and download it yourself and try it for free. As it says on the bottom here, there's no sign-ups with it, so you don't need to hand over your email address. It's not like that. And because it's a paid product, I must say really that I've got nothing to do with the company. There's no affiliate scheme with them, so there's nothing in it for me for doing this. It's just that I like the tool and want to let people know about it. It also follows a video that I did last week where I was looking at the various CSS editors that are for my Beaver Builder chums. So I did a video on that covering a number of them, and obviously included my favorite at the end. And a few folks said at the end of it, can you do more on Stylizer? And I was completely flattered, of course, until I listened to my video and realized how awful it was, and that these kind people were just saying, come on, David, just do it again properly, please. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I'm trying to make amends for my earlier video. And I might as well cover this stuff again over here. You probably want to know what it costs. It's US dollars 79, and you get life updates on what you buy. You get a single license that works on 2 computers. There are upgrades which you'll have to pay for. Now, in my almost 9 years, I've gone from Stylizer 5 to 6, so the updates don't come that frequently, but I do know that they are working on Stylizer 7 at the moment, and the last time I upgraded I got a 50%, I believe, discount on that. So that's the financials there. Also, before I move on, so I don't waste your time, there is a pretty good help section there which covers everything. I only just had a quick look at it, and I wish I'd covered this in more detail, but if you want to cut out me and get the facts lean, come over here and look through these different areas, and it covers all you need to know on the tool. But anyway, here's my take on it. So let's get up the editor itself, and there we are. So when it comes up, you'll need to put in the URL to the page that you're going to be editing. That will pop up. Then it will load up all of the individual style sheets over on this right hand section over there, and it will do them in the order. So you're seeing them in the order of the cascade, which is really handy. One of the most handiest things I think of this program is that when I'm working in a style, usually my style.css file, it's typically on the bottom, obviously on this site, which is of course my favorite Beaver Builder site I'm using. They've obviously got some plugins that go over the top there, but as we know in CSS, the rules that are at the bottom win out, so we know that they don't need to be so specific when we're altering the files here, as we would need to be if we were altering that with files that were in there from above there, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's a key thing. So let's go and look at the interface itself. I'll go over here first with the help. That's pretty obvious. That takes you to the page that I showed you. So just click through that, takes you there. Check for updates, that's obvious. This one's not so obvious, about Stylizer. It's not the usual stuff here. Let me click on that. It is the place where you can go and add in these different browsers, if you like. So we can see this and edit looking through different browser types like Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Chrome. Now I've loaded them. You would have to load them yourself. And then, as you can see over here, I'm using Chrome. It gives us the options to be able to swap from that. Typically, I would be working with Internet Explorer. Let's just do that now. It might take a little bit of time for that to load. The reason for that is that that tends to be the place where there's the greatest bugs. Of course, we know Internet Explorer is dying away soon, but they're still out there, and I still like to check those first, and then I would go to the other ones. So it just moves like that. Okay, so notice there that the scroller has slightly changed as well to take on the styling. I never noticed that before. All right, so that's that. Let's the window tab here. Well, that's just again what's over here. As you can see, all these style sheets are in there. Tons of them. No, I'm not judging. Okay, let's move on to the view, and we go to the preview. I have it on single. If we pick any of these duals or triples, it allows us to put other pages on to edit as well. Never touch that. The stuff, if you go over to here, you can see all the configurations and look that up yourself, but I can't really talk about that. What I can say, let me just get rid of this, is that my big monitor blew up. So we are now looking at this on my laptop, which is 1366 pixels wide. So, you know, doesn't give you a lot of space here, particularly if somebody set theirs at 1200 at full width here. So when you're working with Stylizer, you kind of need to make sure you have some space. There's one thing that I would like them to do is that you could actually reduce down the size with a control minus or something, but that doesn't actually work in this. So that would be a thing that I would like to see in the future. So you need a bit of space, that's what I'm saying. Let's go back here, and again we need to go onto the code grid. Now the code grid is referring to this thing over there. This is where my code is. I can move this whole section over to the left. I can turn it to a dark background, which I don't like, and some other things which I can turn off, which I don't do, and I'll leave you to sort out whether you want that. I don't see the point in that. Then we've got in here, we've got warnings, which is turned on over here. So we can see I'm in the, which style sheet? I'm in their style sheet, aren't I? So as you can see, it's flagged up a couple of warnings here. Now, I'm not, again, absolutely certain how up to date Stylizer is. That updates do come in quite regularly, but whether this is updated with what's valid in CSS 3 at the moment. But you know, in most cases you're going to always find these invalid things, and most of the time if you know it's something that works and is accepted in certain browsers, you just ignore it. It just helps you to find things that really are quite wrong, and that's not the case here with this style sheet, so that's useful. We've also under there, the next one is the search, that's ticked on, and it's there. We can just move between those, but they're already there anyway. We don't need to turn them on over at this side. Let's then move on to a few of our features. These are things that I don't use. I can't use the shortcuts here, or else I may turn off the video. So let's lens. That's not quite sure why I'd really need that. I don't use it. Perhaps you could find a use for it. So there's that. We've got one that sounds really exciting called laser. Wow. Well, laser. You see, that's the laser's working out. I still seem to have got my lens on as well. Let me just turn that off. Okay. Now, laser doesn't seem to work since my update, but I'm not worried too much because you can see the lines, but it's a measuring tool. And the only way I can show you this actually is to just go to the earlier video. And if we see the point in it, we'll see what that looks like. I have to wait a little while. But as I say, it's a measuring tool that I don't use. There we are. Now what you should see is this. So you can see the measurements, but I am not seeing that. So if you do download this and it doesn't work for you, please let me know. I might go ahead with actually reporting it. I don't know if it's something to do with me being on a PC. I know, serves me right for having a PC. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to things that are a little bit more interesting now. The ruler, that's occasionally handy. Turn that on. I can see my breakpoints. Don't do that very often, to be honest. And the next one, Stakeout. Wow, another one that sounds exciting. And actually, this one is quite useful, but I have to admit, I don't use it as much as perhaps I should do. What it does, and we'll be skipping ahead a little bit here. I'm going to just find an area so I can show you. Actually, let me find one I know will work. Let me take this text here with the testimonials, and I need to, and I should be showing you this again in a minute. There, that's what Stakeout does. When you select a particular property, it will, turned on, tell us where else on that page those properties have also been applied. So that's quite handy. And using this, I can just get rid of that for the moment, with the next one on the list here, which is bullseye, which says the shortcut is Control and space, or Command and space, but actually space just works. So actually, if you turn it on like that, it just stays on. It's in a few places. This thing is the bullseye as well. So I use the space bar. That's how I find stuff. So you can sort of find your selectors and you can go around with this. I'm going to turn off Stakeout for the moment. But between those two, it can help you sort of identify things. So now we're on our bullseye. So we can see that's turned on. So it's selecting everything. Let me just tell you what happens with this first. So you can see there's some colors. Let me just select there. There we are. So when it's blue, we've selected our area for selection. And we've got this brown around it. That tells me that's margin. So brown means margin. If I move over to here, we've got green. And I know that's padding, which is quite handy with our bullseye to be able to tell the difference on our layouts, what's margin and what's padding. So there we are, we've got padding there. So that's the bullseye tool. I was moving over these, wasn't I? Let me just quickly say that I don't actually use this edit stuff here. That's got some of the shortcuts on this, and we can align some things. I use some shortcuts, but I'll use them as we go along. And this area here where we can do the usual file stuff where we can save and we can revert, that means bring back the CSS sheet that we've selected. We can do that all by clicking over there. Right, I'm just moving this out of the way for some space at the moment. Shall I just cover that right clicking? Let me do that. So let's imagine on one of our style sheets, we've been working on it here. So I'm in their style sheet. This is the Beaver Builder team's own empty style sheet normally. So this is their child theme. I think, is it a child theme? Yeah. And they've got all their own custom styles in there, beautifully all laid out with all commented sections, as I would try and aim for with the media queries at the bottom. Let me change something here. Let's just take a rule and I would have to pick a complicated one. Let's take something easier and move that. As soon as I make an adjustment there, it puts this little asterisk on there. That tells me that something's changed, and it would happen with any areas I do. Then I can, this works pretty much like a Word document or style or a Excel sheet or something like that, where I can use the usual short code. So I can take that back by using Control and Z, or if you're American, Control and Z, or if you're a Mac American user, Command and Z. So I can turn that back and it goes back to what it had before. If I'm going to put that back again by using my Control and Y, and it's back, and I could go to change. So let's see what happens. I'm going to right click on that and let's do a save so I can show you this. So on the bottom, it shows me where this style sheet is loading from, so I can save each individual sheet. So obviously I don't have a login for the Beaver Builder site, so I would need to create one if they gave me the details, and I would do that by clicking on this plus here, and I would enter in my server username, password, and all of that stuff. So typically when I'm working with this, I would, when I've got a client site that's gone on the maybe on the dev site, I would get up my FileZilla, put those details in there and come and do this at the same time. So it's one job done together, and it's going to memorize these so I can continue to work into it. So next time I don't need to log into WordPress just to do my CSS styling when I'm doing it. I would just do it from here. And if I didn't want to do that, obviously I can load those style sheets. If I'm working locally, I would be loading that to my areas on my local computer. So that's how that works. And the revert is a thing where I can just revert this back. I disregard my change, and that's pulling from the server back the sheet over here. Great. So that's a few other right-click things that I do all the time. Let's work on something now so we can look at the section over the bottom here, which comes in contextually. So we are going to use our bullseye, which is space when I do it. Let's go and pick out this. When I've clicked on an area, it brings up this bottom bar. Now, if you're used to working with an inspector on a browser and that, it's kind of familiar to get these stuff on the bottom, contextually finding stuff. So that's what we're doing here. And we've got a few options. So first thing, when we select something, we can find the rules that are associated with it. Let me find an area where I'm not going to get lost as I go on. Let's take this top one. Okay. That's a selector. So if we're on rules, it's going to show us all the rules. And very similar to this, it's loading in order of the cascade. So at the very bottom here is the one that's most likely to be the one that's needed. And as we can see, it's being given its own class selector over here of header 1. So it looks like this one, the hero bar header 1, it's the only one that's going to be affected here. And oh, that's a surprise, it didn't change. Interesting. I haven't changed the color on that. That's interesting. Let's put the important tag on there. So we've got these other things here, important. Oh, it did. I don't know why that would need to be more specific. I would need to investigate this a little bit further. As there's some, oh, there's color there. Maybe that was it. Anyway, not quite sure about that one. Need to look into that one further. But there we are. That's a way of introducing this along the way here. We can get rid of that rule, but I'm just going to Control and Z back again, and we can also comment out, which is this little stop thing, which is like a in real terms this is actually commenting it out. So I can show you this. Let me show you this. With all of this stuff, even though you've got all these easy selectors here, at the end of the day, when you copy something like this, so let's Control C or Command C and pop this in over here, it will just write it out as normal CSS, and you can see here what's happened. That disable thing has just literally commented out that role. So if we were saving it, we'd have it commented out, but it would still be there. So I'm going to bring it back. Oh, I know I've commented it all out. Let me just make sure I selected the right thing. There we go. Okay, so that's back. Right. I lost my plot there. Let me go back. When we were selecting selectors this way, but we can also go about it. And if I go and revert this back to our Y, we can do this by looking at the actual individual properties. I'm actually more interested in that color now. So we go over styles here, and it will show us where that color style is. And we've got, again, some other places to problem solve this. That's interesting. So solved here. Here's the mystery. Why it didn't change. Inline style. So they popped it into their text editor, I think, and overwritten it there. So that's why I would need to use important to override it. So it's not in my style sheets over here, but by isolating with the style the particular property I was looking at, I could find out that it actually wasn't included in here, but was actually placed in inline style or potentially in JavaScript. But anyway, it's not accessible to me. So if I want to overwrite this, then I've got to do that shameful thing of putting on an important tag to be able to do that. So that was quite interesting. So it shows you how you can kind of problem solve with this, even if it's maybe a little bit confusing. And also the other thing, when you're selecting by properties, you know, when we choose an element, I don't know if it's the case in this one, but we're selecting this here. Not all of the styles that are affecting that element will be in the same place. So some of these will be set somewhere else. Let's just see if that's the case. So, well, I think this one will be text transform none. So we're in the style sheet over here. If I go and select this, we'll see that the text transform none, which is applying to this element, has been set earlier up in the cascade. It's in what's called skin here. So Beaver Builder theme users may know this one, because this is the CSS that's generated for the Beaver Builder theme. It includes what the Beaver Builder team have made, plus your own customizations made in the customizer. So that's what it does. So we know text transform is being set, and that's a rule in a different place. Really handy this to know where all of your styles are coming from, where that sort of whole cascade through there and things that are affecting. And we also know as well, when we go and look at something like this, we can't see much on the other side of this one. We'll move on to another example actually, and I'll be able to demonstrate what I wanted to just show you now. Somebody asked me to cover how you can kind of select the hover states and things like that. So I'm going to go over here and select this, which is a button. So we should see, there we go, that we've got hover. Now we're still on this styles here, so we're still looking at properties. If I go and click on this, I can see the hover state here. So I see what the styling is being made for that hover, and I can do the same with active and visited. What's visited, we get, once it's been visited, we get an underline. There, didn't know that. But there's a style there. And also when we select this and we select our properties over here, so let's say I want to change this background, it's going to bring up all the areas where the background's been affected. Now we're going to expect it to be this one over here, and that would take us right to it. So, oops, just lost that. Let me just go and select this again. There we go. Now, have we got anything on here? No, we haven't got any X's. What I was looking for is little X's where it says that there's some rules that are applying to the element that are not being used. If you see an X, that's telling you that there is a rule there, but it's not being applied to that element. And it would be the same if you saw a little X against any of these. It means it's not effectively linked to the element at all, but we're not seeing it there. But, you know, as you can see with styling, this helps us to select. If I select this while I've got it on hover, what it's going to do here is I know it's a bit tricky to see on here, as you can see, it's looked for the hover rules. There we are. So it kind of helps us to select, so I could change that and see what was going on. So let me just do that. So I've changed it to black now, but of course when I take this off, so normally unless I'm going to select this, I would have a difficulty styling it and seeing what was happening. So that's kind of how that works, and that would work on, say, focus as well. So we could do the same if we had something that uses focus like a form. So we could do the same here. Let's see, we want to look at a border. So we go over there. It looks like that border's been set over there in the skin. That would seem logical, and I could change that border color over there, and as you can see, there's a little bit, I don't know how well you can see that, it's changed that to red. So it's really handy this side. Often though, I will just be selecting a rule and working from there when I select an element. Now I'm just going to Control Z and get us back a bit. I need to go into the actual sheet itself to be able to set these back. Okay, so that's some of the basics of using this. Now let's say we want to start a new rule, because that's more often what we'll be doing. Let's go into, we're borrowing the Beaver Builder Teams style sheet, and what I would be doing here is I go to the bottom, and all we need to do when you selected an area like that, I can just enter, and that will give me the space ready to put in a new rule. If I want to put in a comment just to keep things tidy, that's when I might use this F8 shortcut, which will allow me to put in a commented section on there. So I'm going to put in my styles over here, and then I can enter again, and I'm ready. So let's take something where I want to create a new rule. So, something interesting to do. There, that's a good one. Let me move Chris Lima. He's just hanging in there halfway. I'm gonna put that full on. So I'm gonna select this rule here. I'm going to use make rule. Of course, I've got my space ready for that. And then I need to, this gives me all of my selectors that I could possibly have, starting right up with HTML and moving more specifically to the nearest one. So now with this being a WordPress image here, I can pick the individual image, and that would probably be enough to work with. So in fact, let's do that, because there's no reason necessarily to select more than you need. I suppose if I wanted to be absolutely sure, I'm going to do that. I can see that there's been a tag with this one. We've got FL Lima quote. See, that's how important Chris Lima is. You see, you even have to code him up separately. That's how big he is. One day I'll be like that. Never. Okay, right. So I am going to move him up, and if I just select this, it will put in all of them, and I would open these up. I can't really go through all of these details on this, but if I just wanted to do the right one, I can move to it. But let me just delete that. All I needed to do there was press delete. So once it's activated, I can do that. I want the margin top, so I'm just going to shift him up there, And there we are. There's my, that's it. That's input in place. And I suspect that this may not, see, slipped off for a responsive on there. But I can borrow their media queries and I can just show you how that works. So these are tidy as well. Once you put a media query in here, it wraps these up. So they're all their media queries here within media queries. You know, they're sort of rules within a rule with this. So it's quite easy to put those in. So we would need to look at this max width of 768 here. And I'm going to put in my own rule to make sure that this works. So this, I don't know if it's the fact that it's sitting below, but I don't think so. If I go and copy and paste this into here, I can just use this to insert below. I do this sometimes as well. I right click and insert. And nope, that's not affected. It seems like for some reason I still need to be more specific. So I'm going to, ready? I'm surprised actually. Let me just, oops, I've done that wrong again. Delete. Okay, I'm going to reselect. You must be so bored by now. But I'm going to carry on. Okay, we're going to go for full size. I'm going to select the whole image here. Surely it would have been enough to have just had the other one. But, you know, if I had some more rules in there, that's probably enough. Let's just try it with that. Add those in. And, oops, not left. I want to go up. Let's remove that. And we'll do a bit of minus again. Yay, there we are. Okay, so we set our own responsive rule now, so I can line that up. So Chris is going to be midway on this. Okay, well, that's a bit of an introduction to making new rules. It's a bit of a hit and miss affair. You generally start with less. I mean, I shall be doing more videos on working with Stylizer and Beaver Builder. Perhaps not everybody watching this is Beaver Builder, but that's what we're doing here. So what else do I need to cover? Perhaps things that the small details over here when we're working with, let's see what we can do. Let's grab something else. In fact, I shall go back up and select this again. And let's go and look for our rules. We'll go over here. We'll start messing around with this one in the style sheet from here, which we know has been overwritten with inline styling. But let's put some text shadow, because I want to show you something which is a little, no, not text shadow. Ignore. I'm going to do box shadow. It's not the right thing for this, but it'll work. So if you can see here with this one that I selected, box shadow, I'm not going to cover all of these. This has got a little plus, and I shall show you what that means in a minute. But let's see, we want to put a bit of color to our box shadow. Let's make it black. We're going to give it, spread the distance a little bit, and we're going to give it some blur just to make sure it's really ugly. And that will do. So I've applied this. Now you want to know what this plus is all about, and I shall just show you in a minute. Okay, I think that's as done for that. So let me now Control C and pop over to here and paste this. And that's what the plus is doing. It's adding more stuff than what you can see just to keep it easier. So it's adding all of these. I forgot what the word is, but the thing for Moz, so that works on Firefox, and WebKit, so that works on Chrome things. Now, these, perhaps these days, we don't need those in CSS. I think perhaps Chrome and Firefox and all those don't need these to be able to apply box shadow now. I'm not entirely up to date, but certainly it's included in the Beaver Builder theme and lots of other themes, so it's perhaps handy to have this when you're overwriting anything anyway. But look, I mean, how much time would it take you to type all of that out? And it does it. And there's quite a few rules that are like that when they got a plus, but it basically means that something else is happening with it. So if I type out this one, I think opacity was one of them. It's not showing it on here, but actually, as you can see here, when I'm typing things out, in fact, I'm going to do it on this. I'm going to turn this. Now, there isn't a setting to, I've got bolds and I've got some underlines. I've got all the things that I want, images, background images. I've got placements here, but sometimes I just need to type stuff from memory. So often I'm turning things into uppercase. So I'm going to do that. So that's text transform. So I need to do that. You can see it's starting to autocomplete, and down here it's starting, let me just wiggle down here. Down here it's starting to find them as well. So that's a clue. So I need dash. As soon as I hit T there, I've hit the only option that's available here. So I can then tab, and that moves me there. Then I can continue typing and it'll select one here, but as you can see there, I've got my full options here, so I can just move this to uppercase. And that's how that's working when you start typing or selecting any of these rules. You'll just tab along and that speeds it up, and then I can move, you know, enter, move on to my next rule and start doing that kind of stuff. Here's one thing that I think here doesn't help you much learn CSS, because we click this one and it's a placement thing, but it's a plus. As you can see, it's doing something that's not here. We don't have placement in CSS, unfortunately. We don't have something so simple, but here we are. We can move our elements by wiggling them around where I like. So let's have a look what the CSS actually looks like for that. Let me go over, oh, I forgot it, there we are. Let me pop that CSS in there. So there we are, placement. What it does, it tells you what's happened. It puts a little comment here saying it's used the placement there, but all it did is position relative and then move these to the pixels left and top off there. I mean, it could be bottom and right, but that's what it's doing in that case. So, you know, there are some little hidden things like that, but certainly that saves a lot of time. I mean, it's so much easier to work with something like that. Right, let me get rid of this. It's so ugly. What else have I not covered here? I've covered the sections over here. I've covered the rules over here. I think I've probably taught you enough. The only thing that I didn't do here is do a little bit of selecting of colors and stuff. I probably need to go and select a color. So as soon as you want that, you can go and get your eyedrop picker, and by hitting Shift, I can save that. But as we know, this one's already been inland style, so we can't change that one. And I think that is probably as much of an overview. As I say, I'm going to be doing more videos where I'm going to be using this, so maybe you'll pick up how I use it, and maybe I might be able to help with some tips as I go on and I learn some. All right, that's been me. That's been Stylizer. I hope it's been useful. Sorry for going on so much. I don't think this is much of an improvement on the earlier one, but anyway, that's how it goes. Talk to you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.